Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hello everyone, I'm so happy to be here with you today. Today we have my week 12 reading wrap up, and I have a bit of a correction to something I said in the last video, which is very exciting. I'll get to in just a minute. I mean, not last video, last week's wrap up. Also, this is my first week of being 32. Thank you to everyone for all the birthday wishes and the gifts sent my way. I appreciate you so much. I gotta say, I think I've said it in a few videos now, so maybe I'm a broken record, but I was kind of excited to turn 32. I like being even numbers. Anyway, point being, I like saying that I'm 32. I just like it. So that's a weird quirk of Jen's. I said it. There we are. Okay, enough stalling. Let's get into it. So the correction I have to make on last week, okay? So last week's was a bit frazzled. Sorry for it not being fully my normal quality, but after getting home late last week from the weird snowstorm, but then it got like warm again, like it was a whole thing, I still wanted to get my weekly review up because otherwise I would have had a million books to talk about this week. The Realmathon, which I haven't done really like vlogs for that. I know a lot of the other co-hosts have. I hope you'll forgive me for it. I do reserve vlogs almost exclusively for my Patreon, so doing double the vlogs would have been just too much for me to handle in this month. But I squeezed in the Girlfriend Zone because I was almost done with it, and I had said it was 5-star, but I need to correct myself because I gave The Girlfriend Zone by Lauren Blakely 6 stars. Okay. And I got to tell you, I was surprised that I did this. I knew there was still a third act situation to come, but I was like, truly, I trust Lauren Blakely at this point at least with this series, right? I've had ups and downs with her in the past. She's written so many books, so there's lots of variation. But with this series specifically, she really hasn't let me down. I feel like the characters she creates, she sticks true to them. I don't know another way to say that, but there's sometimes that with a conflict, I feel like an author kind of betrays their character and doesn't portray them the way that I think that they should. Again, I know how cocky and high-mighty of me to say that, but that's what I get to judge as a reviewer. That's what you get to judge as a consumer. If you think that they created a scenario and then stuck with it or not, like we get to decide that. And I honestly was blown away. Okay, so I'm going to not completely redux everything I said about that one. I will link the review for this one. I'm just going to vaguely hint at what boosted this to a 6-star, because this book isn't out yet. I don't think it's out till the 26th, so I think it comes out this coming like Friday. But I gotta tell you kind of like why I boosted it, because sure, like 5 stars where it was headed, and then bam, I finished it and I was sitting with it. And this year so far, I've only given out 1 6-star, though there are a couple books I'm reserving that I may bump up to a 6-star. This may be the first year that I actually reread some 5-star reads in December and bump them up, just because there are some that as I've sat with them, I'm like, I think this is a 6-star read, right? And when I got to the end of this book, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, what are the flaws? I didn't have any. And then I thought, like, I truly think this is a 6-star read because it has everything I want in this type of relationship, okay? So again, not to go over the full explanation of this book again, but this was they had a one-night stand, then discovered that she's the coach's daughter, he's a player, the coach is his, like, inspiration and really saved his career. Our hero's name is Miles. And Leighton is a photographer, coach's daughter, loves her dad. She has partial hearing loss. There is ASL used in here a little bit, at least between her sister, and her dad. And she wears hearing aids, so that was cool representation in here. She may lose her hearing fully later on, but for now she can still hear. But it is something she's a bit insecure about. It's not something where she hates on herself for it. She just is, she kind of like hides her hearing aids, and she doesn't like how people treat her when they find out, particularly like her own mother. And like loud situations can be tough on her because it's hard for her to then like separate the the voices from like ambient noise out. And again, I felt that was portrayed very well. I feel like Lauren Blakely did do her research with that very well. And anyway, so these two have a one-night stand. They're really liking each other. There was a reason, well, not like a specific reason, because neither of them was being deceptive, but they both have, you know, famous connections. And so when they go on these like dates to start with, there's just a couple dates they go on. But they don't like say what their jobs are right away. And so they get pretty far into this connection. Though it all takes place like within an 18-hour period. Then they find out who the other is, and it is devastating. And as I said in, again, the review from last week, I need to stop saying that. You get the point. I liked how they reacted to that. Like, there wasn't them thinking the other person is deceiving them. There was no blame. They were just like, this is unfortunate because we had such a great connection and we got to cut this off now because it can't be more than it is. And that was devastating to them. So then this becomes a very slow burn, and this book is actually taking place during a lot of the other books because these two meet, you know, quite a ways ahead. And then we see a few different significant events that we've seen through the series, but not enough that it felt the same as, funny enough, as like a complete redux of those scenes. They're just kind of referenced to show that we're passing time, right? And it's actually a pretty slow burn of quite a few months before, you know, them becoming even like better friends, and they're at work situations together because she's photographing the team. And anyway, so this was a really like slow burn, but they became such good friends. That was something I really loved about the first book in the series I brought up. That was another case of like a one-night stand, and then it was his teammate's sister. So what bumped this up to a 6-star was absolutely the third act. And to not completely like spoil that, which I probably will eventually because I'll put this in an oddly specific recommendation and then you'll know like what that third act is. But to not spoil it and like encourage you to read it. The reason for it had to do with her hearing loss. It had to do with a grand gesture that was honestly like, I'm gonna cry right now. Like, Miles' grand gesture to her was so beautiful. It's also one of those ones where we say like, if he wanted to, he would. And this is something that, as I said, this story is taking place over about a year fully. He does this certain thing for her over time without her knowing. And without the hope of them, well, not no hope, but without the expectation that they'll be romantically involved, he does a thing as a friend for her. Okay? Which then, when it's revealed in the third act, is very clearly a loving soulmate type of thing that he does, but he's not even looking at it that way when he's doing it. And I know that that's vague about it, but again, it has to do with her hearing loss, and maybe you can guess what it is by like how emotional I'm getting about it. But it's great because it proves to her, which he already, it's, again, there's no third act breakup in this one, but it's still a point where they're like, how's our relationship going to work? Could this ruin my relationship with, not ruin it with her dad, because, but could this cause complication for all of that? What's going to happen there? Could this have problems for her career? Like, all of those things are still there. But it isn't a third act breakup, but it is a third act grand gesture of his that he's showing, like, this isn't a passing thing for me. Like, you're going to be in my life. And that grand gesture he does, again, without expectation of them being romantic partners, he does as like, you're going to be in my life and like, you're my best friend, so I would do this for you. So anyway, I've said enough. I've probably given the bag away, but I know people ask, can you read this as a standalone? All those things. In the case of this one, this whole series you can read as standalones. Yes, of course, they're going to be best if you read them in order, but this one particularly, because as I said, it kind of starts not fully before all the other ones, but it does start very like, before at least books 2 and 3. I think book 1 had still like happened. but you could read this first because it starts before some of the others. So you'll see the love stories obviously referenced of other people, but that always happens in interconnected standalones. So if you want to read the book I gave 6 stars to first, you absolutely can. Okay, this comes out, as I said, on the 26th. I'll have a link to the pre-order down below. I truly love this. I will be bringing this one up. I'm actually getting ready to do another video that's friends to lovers, specifically because of this one, because I love this book. And so when I looked at, you know, I've only given one other book 6 stars this year, which was By the Letter. They're a completely different type of story, so I'm not saying that I like this one better or whatever, but they are of like equal quality to me. And that shouldn't be shocking or anything. I mean, again, Lauren Blakely's written like 100 books or something like that. She definitely has the talent and she's prolific. I just have never seen anything from her to the level that this whole series has been for me, right? It's the way you click. And I have another author on this list on my reading this week that's the same. Like, they've written so many other books, but it's this series, that series specifically, that's what I click with, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that I'll want to read the whole backlist of Lauren Blakely, but I've read 20 to 30 of her books through the years, and they've always just been like, even like 3 to 4 star reads until this series, which has been, again, I've probably given one of them 5 stars or so like that. But until this series, where they've all been 4.5 or higher, I believe I've given them all like 5, 4.5, 4.5, and this is a 6 star. So far through the series, I've still always loved that first book the most, but this one was 6 star. And there I went, and I was just going to talk quickly about it, but it got 6 stars, so you know we had to go more in depth about it, okay? But I have a few to talk through a bit quicker. So, okay, anyway, just a few other things about that one to remind you. It was an age gap. It's a like hidden relationship. It's also kind of a second chance because of that one night stand. It's a slow burn. This has, you know, disability rep for hearing loss. She wears hearing aids, hockey. There is just a few little kinks in here. They're very subtle, and they're put into the book in a way that, you know, it's not jarring to you. They do enjoy a little bit of hand necklaces at some points, and a little bit of rough play that is very cute. There's also a boudoir photo shoot in this one, so it was fun because that's something that she's getting into, is doing boudoir photo shoots, and he actually helps her with a photo shoot at one point, which was great. Okay, next up was a new release, If You Give a CEO a Chance by Ann Einerson. I was a little bit behind getting to this one. You know, arcs are a constant struggle and joy at the same time for me. But this is the final book in the Aspen Grove series, and I'm on Ann Einerson's like content team. Been reading for her since, honestly, the very beginning. I read her very, very first release, which was a very angsty contemporary that I didn't care for too much. But when she switched to these lighter contemporaries, I gave her another chance, and I've just really enjoyed her. So this one is a second chance romance. This one also has a hockey player, but he is an ex-hockey player in this one. And this is Harrison and Fallon. And this one has an interesting thing in it. Our hero has celiac disease, right? Which is a very common thing that people have, gluten intolerance. And it's very severe. And he, being a billionaire, needs a private chef, honestly, to like plan his meals out and help him with that, because he can't be sick with this all the time. And sometimes he needs meals pre-made for him to like bring with him when he goes places and things like that. If they don't have gluten-free stuff, which again is something so many people have to deal with. So very practical. And to have like this billionaire have that issue, granted, again, he can afford to have a private chef, which is not what all of us can do. But it is a very like real and kind of like grounding thing that people can have wrong with him. And now the heroine here, Fallon, again, this is a second chance. And so these two had a fling, I believe it says it's like 10 years ago when he was still a hockey player. They have a fling, and there was something that went wrong where after their fling, they were very connected to each other, right? They had a great one-night stand, and there's a reason why he has to leave. And not to spoil it, but things go sour after he has to leave. And there's a miscommunication that isn't completely either of their faults, but it ends up, you know, they never contact each other again because they each think the other person snubbed them, and it just blows out of proportion, and it's not great. It's not great. And now it's all these years later, and there's a bit of meddling happening from Harrison's mother, who she's the one who kind of pushes for Fallon to become his chef, and now she needs a job really badly, and this is obviously going to pay her very well to work for a billionaire, but she's also his like live-in chef to make it more practical to be making all of his meals. So now she is like living with him as well. So there's that stuff. So yep, this one, I didn't love this the most of them all. I gave this one a 4-star. Why? I couldn't really tell you. I had a hard time concentrating on this one. It's also, I think, the longest one in the series, and I think she does better when she tightens it up a little bit. Their animosity for each other was very much hinging on only a misunderstanding that they let completely get out of the way or out of control. And again, they address that when it comes to it. He's still a very possessive and obsessive hero, and he can't stop thinking about her. There's some use of sex toys in here that was very hot. Anne writes great steam in here. But I also think that when I look at all the books in this series, and I hate to say this now, but in reflecting on all of them, every single one, it's been a misunderstanding for it. Now, again, I know misunderstandings are a common thing, okay? They happen in real life, whatever. But as far as I am recalling too, in every single one of these, maybe not If You Give a Lawyer a Kiss, but that one's not even officially in this series. It's a like connected side one. It's been a misunderstanding that was either the third act conflict or what kept them apart, right? If You Give a Single Dad a Nanny, he assumes some stuff about her and he's grumpy about her being next door, right? In If You Give a Billionaire a Bride, they're family friends, and there was like a misunderstanding why they're not buddy anymore, and then we get to this one, and it's a misunderstanding that happened 10 years ago that caused such a rift that they haven't, that they like hate each other now because of it, right? And I just think that she needs to kind of find different ways to do these conflicts now. But I am excited. Her next series is going to be Cowboy, and that's coming in May. And I mean, it's not enough to make me stop reading her because her books are still enjoyable. It's just that coming after The Girlfriend Zone, coming in the midst of quite a few like really intriguing and intense books this week, this one just kind of felt a bit like, forgettable in that way. But at another time, it might have been more exciting. So got to move this along. I gave it 4 stars. It was a 3 on the spice scale. Had a little bit, as I said, of some sex toys and watching each other get off. That's one I've had a request for people wanting me to do an oddly specific video for, and that's one of those that is very hard to look that up. So I'm trying to make note of it in my notes so that if I want to make a video, I can like do a Control-Alt search for it. But anyway, those of you who like that, it happens in here. Okay, next up, I listened to a narration by Connor Craze and Aaron Mallon in Mountain Boss. Sorry, I forgot to mention The Girlfriend Zone. That one was Jason Clarke and Samantha Brightmore, and it was duet narration. It was great. This is duet narration by Connor Craze and Aaron Mallon, and this is her new series that's coming. That is like, I would consider this one like semi-dark. I'll tell you what I mean, but it's not as dark as like the Alliance series, which is Mafia, which is still kind of Mafia light to me. And I would call this one kind of a I don't know. It's got shades of darker aspects, and I'll tell you why. But they're very much S.J. Tilly darker aspects to it. It's hard to explain. But anyway, in this one we have Courtney, who having some financial insecurity. That's also a theme that S.J. Tilly does quite a bit. A lot of authors do, though. That's not picking on her. But our heroine's got a job being a maintenance lady for this kind of like fishing and camping resort. It's not a hunting lodge. We're very specific that we don't want to deal with the liability of it being a hunting lodge. But we have our hero Sterling, who is 46. Our heroine is 30. So we do have a big age gap, but they are both what I'd consider more mature characters. She's also a curvy heroine, as again, S.J. Tilly staple. We love it. Give those curvy girls their love. And he is our grumpy mountain boss. Now, his maintenance guy is moving on, and he hired who he believes is called Court. And so he thinks this is a man that's been hired. So he's waiting for his new employee to show up, and this beautiful, curvy-licious, gorgeous woman shows up, and he discovers that this isn't Court, it's Courtney. The name was misspelled. And he is immediately like, I can't have this gorgeous woman working here, right? So that is 100% why he puts on the animosity, is because she's too hot to work there, right? Which, it is a bit of a leap to get over. But I was still so charmed by this, because what S.J. Tilly does is, this man, though in his mind what he's going to do is make the working situation so untenable that she won't want to stay there. That's her plan. Make it unsustainable for this woman to work there by being a grump to her, by making it difficult. He doesn't mean to make it quite as difficult as he does, because he puts her in the like laundry house. The bunk doesn't have a mattress on it, which he doesn't know. It's very like the temperature is not being regulated in there, which he doesn't know. And she does not want to lose this job, because this is supposed to be a room and board situation, which is what she needs. And she needs to make it through this 3-month time, because it's supposed to be a guaranteed 90-day trial period. Because if you're moving to live there, you need more than just like, you know, to get fired right away. But his goal is to make her want to leave at the end of that. And again, he works it a little too hard to do that. So things are pretty miserable for her to start with. I can't even imagine sleeping on a mattressless bunk bed. Speaking as someone who's had her back go out a bit recently, that sounds like absolute hell, and I don't know how she makes it through. Like, talk about relatable, like, trauma. Having to sleep on, like, oh my gosh, my back hurt just thinking about it, okay? And that's not a joke. You guys know my back has struggled. But anyway, so yeah, he becomes obsessed with her. He's stalking her. He gets cameras put in for security. He's watching her. He steals her used panties. Like, it's very much S.J. Tilly-esque. And as he starts to see, though, like, how much, like, struggle he put her through, he feels horrible, and he starts going above and beyond to fix everything. Now, this is a weird comparison to make, and I should be careful saying this, because I don't want to say that the quality of story is the same, but there definitely were aspects of, like, Elliot and Catherine that I was getting from this, and I'll tell you why. In the fact of the, like, being very broody and standoffish to the face, but behind the scenes doing a bunch of things to make things better for the heroine. And specifically one of those things is, I'll tell you this little spoiler to kind of, you'll see what I mean. You know how in P.S. You're Intolerable, Elliot buys all new office chairs for the entire floor so that he can buy a new chair for Catherine when she's pregnant and it's uncomfortable? Well, Sterling buys new mattresses for every cabin so that he can buy a new mattress for her and get her the best one that there is, because he thinks the mattresses he currently has wouldn't be good enough for her. So there's an example of, he rights his wrongs very dramatically, okay? So just know that all the things he does to be an asshole in the beginning, he will very strongly turn around. So how is this kind of dark light? Well, it's because he's stalking her. He is, you know, masturbating to the thoughts of her. And there is also a trauma that happens in here at one point. Yeah, I won't totally spoil that or anything, but there is a villain that pops up to cause some problems that is kind of dark, those problems that he comes up with. Okay, so yes, this was duet narrated, very good, but it's still, S.J. Tilly isn't changing anytime soon. There are 202 chapters in this book, because some chapters are as simple as Sterling going, I want to fuck her. Sorry, maybe that's a bad example. Or from her point of view being like, and I didn't sleep last night. Chapter 201. So that is something that, when you're listening to it, as I say, I love listening to these books. The narration is fabulous in her stories. I love them. I've listened, every book of hers I've read at this point, I've listened to the audio for. But it is something she does across all of hers, is she writes way too many chapters. And when you're listening, that's annoying. When I'm reading it, honestly, it's not as annoying, because you're just going through it and it's fine. But when you listen to it and the chapter's changing sometimes there's chapters that are literally 15 seconds long, you're kind of like, what was the point? So that's a tiny critique that, you know, if you read it fit like with your eyes, you won't have to deal with. So I ended up giving this 4.5 stars so that I could give it a 5. Like, it's not quite a 5, but I listened to this and I had a great time, despite those little things. And reading S.J. Tilley's are really like comfort reads at this point, because there are these big burly guys who just turn into the biggest simps there are. Like, if I make a simp TBR, S.J. Tilley's men are all going to be right at the top of it. Okay. Like, they just are, you know, like, oh, I don't have them right there anymore. Do I? No. Where did I put them at? I don't know where my S.J. Tilley men are. I think I might have moved them over there. I moved some books around because I have too many. Hans and Nero, like, they are the simps to end all simps. Then there was Hidden Roots by Cleo Evans. This one I'll kind of talk about quickly. So this is the final book in the Citrus Grove trilogy, which is like an erotic, how do I say this? It's an erotic romantic suspense. So a romantic or a suspenseful romance with erotic scenes in it. But very enjoyable. These are very like kinky. This one involved pegging. It involved enemies to lovers, but the hero is very much hiding how obsessed he is with her. Our heroine is from a pretty wealthy family. She has an ex-husband who things just like did not go well with them. And she moved to this town a few years ago. So she's actually been living in Citrus Grove for a while. And they have a bad first interaction with each other, and they keep up this antagonistic thing. But really the hero, whose name is Hunter, this is Hunter and Emma, he keeps the facade of the grumpy interaction because he doesn't think he's good enough for her. And so he's like, I need her to like hate me and not like love me, blah, 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 all these things, which is kind of annoying. And then there is a suspense element. And this one has to do with, I mean, it'll be obvious to you. It has to do with her ex-husband. And also some people thinking she's an outsider. So it's like that as well. But she finds out pretty early on in this book that her father has died. And so her ex-husband shows up, and he's the one who tells her that her father died because he's a business partner of her dad's. And she was actually left the business. And her ex-husband, who has worked with her father for a very long time, that's actually why they originally like were married in the beginning and then like got a divorce and all that jazz. Because she'd married him to like please her dad or whatever. But she's been cut off from her family for a while. So it's like, she's like upset. She's like kind of sad her dad died, but also more so that there's this mess. And she's like, I'm not handing this over to you. Like, why would I do that? And so he's in town almost to like bully her into doing that. And so she actually ends up roping Hunter into being her fake boyfriend, and Hunter is like, I'm not just gonna be her fake boyfriend, I'm gonna be her fake fiance. So his obsession like goes from him hiding it to like full out there really quick, because he's like, if you're gonna make me be your fake I'm gonna be your fake fiance. So now they are fake relationship, and since they are fake relationship, they end up, they're like hateful animosity bursts forth in sexual chemistry, and they both share that they're both kind of kinky, and they start exploring some things together, which is what happens in Cleo Evans' books. So I felt like the plot in this one, I've said this kind of about all of these books, the first book, the suspense element worked the best in that one for me, but the subsequent books, I feel like the suspense element has just gotten in the way of the erotic romance going on. I'm sorry. I love what she does in the bedroom and the communication and the kink exploration. Like, I love that stuff. And the suspense elements are honestly getting in the way and just kind of like annoying to me. And I don't love to see that. But this one had it had anal, it had hand necklaces, breeding kink. They have role play with CNC in here. He pretends to be the plumber who's extracting payment. Like, this is great. She has that fantasy. And there is pegging in here as well, with him kind of like topping from the bottom at the same time. Like, it's hot, right? We love that. So yeah, there is some animal danger to an animal in here. I believe the animal's okay though. Yes, the animal's okay. There's kidnapping and violence, and like, it was okay. Like, it was okay. All right. I gave it 4 stars because it was an arc, but like, I've read better. Okay, next, I can quickly say I did a reread because I had the ALC of Bourbon and Lies, which was wonderful. This was a like week of duet narration, man. Like, there's only one I listened to that was dual, because this was duet narrated by Connor Craze and Samantha Brentmore. Look at that. I had Samantha Brentmore and Jason Clark, Connor Craze and Aaron Mallon, and then we have Connor Craze and Samantha Brentmore, who, in my opinion, are just a match made in heaven anyway. I love these. And Connor Craze, as I've said, should always be a cowboy. It just should be his only job. I'm just saying. Him and Sean Masters should exclusively narrate cowboys. It is all I want in my life. But anyway, these are... the Bourbon Boys are coming to audio, and I'm on the ALC team for Victoria Wilder, and I listened to this all in one sitting. I was working on puzzle on my new table. I got a table for my birthday, which again, if you are in my Patreon vlogs, you'll see me talk about my table and chairs that I got. And I was so happy I got to do a puzzle, which is part of the reason why I have made it through so many of my audiobooks this week, because I was working on puzzles, which was great. But this series, you guys know I'm already obsessed. I got the physical copies of these actually for my birthday from Jessin. Thank you, Jessin. I love these covers. Covers is a big deal for me. This cover illustration was done by the Whiskey Ginger. She has done some amazing covers these are done by an artist. There's not AI involved in these. This is absolutely stunning. Like, just a look at the details in this. But anyway, I've talked about this book 100 times. So again, just for the sake of brevity, our heroine is in the witness protection program, and she is staying in Fiasco, Kentucky. And there are the Fox brothers, there's 3 of them who run this like Fox Bourbon, or the Bourbon Boys. And he is an ex-law enforcement officer. He has a ex-law enforcement partner who is a dog. Her name is Julep, and she's one of the best parts of this book. And I honestly loved this book more listening to it. I really did. It was easier to pay attention to it and what was going on. And it just reaffirmed how much I love these characters. Like, really, I was so happy. I know I gave this 5 stars the first time, but that was honestly too, because to me, this was a brand new to me author. I'd never read her before, and I was just really impressed. This is solidly 5-star for me now. I think this is an example of the suspense being done very well. It's a good example of flashbacks being just peppered in here, because they both have some PTSD from things. He lost his partner who was like, going to be his wife. I guess they weren't at that point yet, but they'd been secretly dating, and they were very serious with each other. And she died in a deal gone wrong when he was in law enforcement. It actually led to him quitting the force because of some of his PTSD. And now he just works with the family, and he's very grumpy and very closed off because he's hiding a lot. And when Lainey gets brought to town, she is staying, the U.S. Marshal is connected to this town. I won't explain how. And she puts her up in a home there. Nobody knows why she's there, but there are a couple of people who realize that she's there because of witness protection. And so she gets a job with the Fox brothers, and she's living nearby. And, sorry, the hero's name just went out of my head. Laney and Grant is his name. He is very suspicious of her, and of course he doesn't know that she's there for witness protection. So he's trying to find out why she's there, which is dangerous. He should keep it to himself, but he might not do that. So anyway, I really like this one. They are a bit physical forward with each other, I will tell you that. And that is something that, it bugs me a little bit more now in books in general than when I read this the first time. It's something that continually irks at me. However, in this book, I think it is balanced really well. But I know, funny enough for Jessin, who gifted this to me, she didn't love that in these as much, but I don't know, it worked for me. And I love how much his dog loves her and looks out for her. I'm a sucker for that. And I just love the family, which I loved even more in Bourbon and Secrets. I can't wait to listen to the audio for that. So 5 stars for me. It is a, let me see what I gave it. A 3.5 on the spice scale. There's some fun scenes in here. One of the positives, as I said, was Julep. I love the dog. She's amazing. So it is romantic, suspenseful stuff though too. Okay, next up was Second Best by Noelle Adams. Of course, I was reading this for my job. I am a PA for her on the side, and this is one of her backlists I haven't read before. But this one is a friends slash colleagues with benefits. You know, I won't go in like too much details about this because it's a pretty short book, but we have Ashley and Sean, and they start up this like bi-weekly fuck session is what they start doing. They're both kind of in love with someone else. Sean is in love with his fiance who died. So he isn't a widower, but he almost is. Okay. There was a freak accidental like shooting that led to the death of his fiance, and he doesn't plan to love again, right? And then we have Ashley, and she's actually in love with someone else who doesn't know she exists. And Sean does know this about her. So both of them are kind of know that they are second best to the other, but they have this great sexual chemistry, and they decide to like, let's just fuck each other and keep it just about the sex. But they also are just like, they're not cold with each other or standoffish either, right? Like they like each other. That's why they're comfortable having sex and meeting at this hotel. And this is another case of like, they are friends. Like this is friends to lovers as well. And so they talk through their like issues together. And, you know, one of the things that I normally would not like in a book, and you'll see this in some of the reviews for this book if you look it up, because again, I knew nothing about this one. There's a lot of books in Noelle's backlist that I'll be reading, you know, over the coming months and hopefully years. And, you know, there are just some things that like you don't know going in or that you wouldn't like in some books you do in others. I always think that Noelle does a great job of making stories like so straightforward, but have that one thing that you're kind of like, oh, if you could just figure this out. She's one of the few authors that I genuinely enjoy that she does miscommunication, because she does it in such a believable way. That's the thing. They're always so real and believable, right? This is the example of miscommunication where you're like, well, yeah, she wouldn't have said that, right? But anywho, so anyway, the thing I don't like is, you know, her specifically, she's obsessed with another guy at the office, and he doesn't know she exists. And throughout this story, she does eventually go on some dates with this guy while she still is having sex with Sean. And like, Sean knows about it. So there's a little bit of like other man drama. But again, Sean has made it clear that there won't be anything but sex. And until she is like sleeping with, you know, this other, which, spoiler, she doesn't sleep with this other guy, but they're okay with continuing their liaison until she's ready to move on with it. And that is what the, you know, like, is he just going to sit back and watch that happen, or like what's going to go on? Now, that won't be for everyone. I'm not trying to push it on you. I read it for my job and I didn't hate it, but I also don't share my ratings for books of hers that I read anymore. But it was straight to the, like, I don't know. There's a lot of fun stuff in it still too. And some really good discussions that they had. And again, genuine like friends to lover situation. So, okay, next up, here we are. And here we come to, as I said, probably a bit of the controversial part of it. And I'm just debating how to speak about it. But as always, I'm just going to be honest and trust you as my audience to know that this is only coming from like the best of places that I can. And I'll try to explain what I mean by that. And the things that have been frustrating me and why I get annoyed with it. But still know that if this story is representing you the wrong way, which I'll get into why I feel like that's such a weird argument to make, but I can't speak to the representation in this story because it's not mine. So, and I don't want to speak for anyone else. I'm just speaking for me and why I don't find it problematic. But that doesn't mean it's not problematic on its face. Do you understand? Okay, here we go. It's Kiss the Villain, all right? Kiss the Villain came out, and I actually got an ALC of this, but I didn't get it early. So, you know, which does make sense. I mean, some of you know who do read ALCs, which I had on a previous video. If someone doesn't know what that means, that's totally fine. ALC and ARC both refer to advanced copies of a book. And ARC, which is what a lot of these books are that I've talked about this week because I'm a book reviewer, I get books early, mean advanced reading copy, okay? Or advanced review copy. That's what ARC means, right? And ALC is an early audiobook, which again were some of the other books I was talking about this week, right? Like the Bourbon and Lies, that isn't available for you on audiobook yet. I gotta listen to it ahead of time. Mountain Boss, the audiobook isn't out yet. I gotta listen to it early. So it means advanced listening copy, okay? So I received a audio code from Rena Kent to get to review the audiobook, which I was so excited about. Like, oh my gosh, I did not think I would make it on a review team for Rena Kent. Like, wow. However, it was a audio code, an ACX is what that's called, like Amazon's audio thing. And when you get an ACX code, you can't use it until the book is out. So basically I got a free copy of the book, which again, I'm not quibbling about that. But normally with ALCs, you get them early. That's why they're advanced. So this one was more just, I received a review copy and I got it for free. So I got it the same time everyone else did. I didn't get it earlier than anyone else or any of that. But I was still very excited. So it doesn't take away my joy in it, but I didn't have it earlier than anyone else, right? So, so much to talk about with this book. We gotta get through it. So this book is the spin-off series from Legacy of the Gods. And we got to have some ground setting with this. So there are 6 books in the Legacy of the Gods, which is a 2nd generation series, sometimes a 3rd generation series for Rena Kent, right? I have very much enjoyed Legacy of the Gods way back now in 2023. That was my like reintroduction to Rena Kent. I'd read a few of her books through the years with mixed results, blah, blah, blah. You guys know my whole thing. Legacy of the Gods came. I read the first book as kind of like a vlog thing where I was like trying Rena Kent again for the first time. And I was obsessed and I read all of them. And for the most part, I love them. There was only one of them I didn't really care for. Love them. They were great. And there was 6 of those books about 6 different couples where each of them was a 2nd generation character. Now, there are more children for her characters than what fit into 6 books, you know. And so there were characters left that didn't have HEAs yet. People were upset about it or like, please, please, please write it, begging. And Rena was like, no, 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 that's it. Maybe they will come up in short stories, but she changed her mind. Now, here's the first thing. Authors can change their mind. There can be more hype than they expect for a thing, and they can then want to tell those stories. People may then say, well, that's pandering. People may say that is cash grab. Like, people throw up these terms. And maybe I should say this for a tea time video, but we're just going into it. You guys love my longer weekly wrap-ups anyway. And if you don't care about this book, you can skip to the next 2 that I have to talk about anyway. But I don't really understand the discussion of like cash grab as like a, you know, again, I've read authors where it's clear that, okay, you wrote this for money, but why that's said completely in a negative connotation, I don't know. Authors in general are doing it for money if it's their full-time job, right? And even authors who aren't doing it as their full-time job, they do hope to be compensated for their work. Like, that is just how it goes, right? Like, all the authors we love, they're doing it for money. They may also be doing it because they love their characters, but they can be doing it also for money, right? Like, that is how it goes. So that always makes me roll my eyes a little bit. But we were told, I believe, was it in October of last year? It was a little ways after God of War came out, or whenever that was, that she was going to do like a standalone spin-off. She'd also announced that there was going to be a new series that was completely divorced from the Renaverse. You could read it without it being connected to anything. And I will get into that just a little bit too. Again, a lot to discuss with this. And first, like, Beautiful Venom was announced, which was going to be a series that Bloom was doing because Bloom picked her up, re-released all of the Legacy of the Gods books. That's great. All of those are here. Beautiful Venom was announced. The book's, I think, coming in May, and that's going to be a dark hockey romance series that is MM. So we knew the next series was going to be MM and that it was not connected to the Renaverse, which meant Renaverse, in case you don't know, is that all of her previous books are connected, right? That's what led to Legacy of the Gods. All those books are connected, so all their children are within the same world, and they went to these 2 colleges, and we had that stuff, right? Well, Beautiful Venom was supposed to be, like, disconnected. It's going to be its own series. But then she announced that indie publishing, so not with Bloom, she was going to do Kiss the Villain, which is the green cover and all of it. And this was going to be about Gareth and his professor, who this MM couple was hinted at in the series. We saw it pop up in some of the other books that Gareth was interested in a professor. We found out in, I think it's Nico's book, which would make sense because Nico and Bran like are in this book not quite a bit, but they show up. And Nico kind of like confronts him about liking a guy because, you know, he's going through the same thing in his book, right? Though Nico's always kind of been pretty fluid sexually anyway. So when we were told about that, it was like, oh my gosh, yay. Because God of Fury was amazing. My opinion, my favorite book that she's written. Again, blah, blah, blah. I was very excited about it. So yeah, we got this book. And a few announcements before I get into what it is about. Number one, this is now... Nope, I'm going to say this. This is actually going to be a series with Bloom. So this one was released independent, but if you've seen one of her hints about, like, make sure you get this cover while you can, it's because, you know, it's going to be coming from Bloom. And that's not really hidden anymore because the second book in the series is announced at the end of this one. And this is going to be an all series as well. So she will have this series. And this will continue to tell some stories of people from this universe, okay? And people want to say like that is cash grab now that she's writing MM and all of this stuff. Now, again, I say, is she doing it for cash? Probably. Does that mean she still didn't genuinely have stories she wanted to tell? No. Both can be true, everyone. Both can be true. And I might feel like it was a cash grab if I didn't absolutely adore this book, which we'll get into that part of it. But the part I can't speak to, this is now I'm going to put this in here, is that one of the criticisms then whenever a straight woman is writing MM is that she's taking advantage of a community or using a community for money or all of those things. That is what I can't speak to that. Because to me, I love these stories, and I don't want to say that what her motives are on that or if she shouldn't tell it or not. Like, that's the part that's not my place to say. But it also doesn't mean that I have to, you know, say that I, like, hated the book because of that, because I didn't. And again, when I get into some of the things I loved and, well, mostly loved, but there are a few things I didn't like about this book we'll talk about. I can still have enjoyed it because guess what? It's a toxic romance. If this had been an MM romance, it would be, or MF romance, it would be just as toxic, okay? As all of her books are. Okay, let's be honest. There's a lot of misogyny, a lot of sexism, a lot of that in Mafia in general and in Rena's books in general, okay? So if one of these people had been a woman, we would still be saying that it was toxic and we would still, you know, that wouldn't be there. So I don't feel that. But again, I can't speak to that because I'm not gay. It's not my community that could be being taken advantage of. So I can't say that. But for me, it doesn't diminish what I felt about this story. And you can take that for what it means about me or what it means about my reading taste, all that you want, right? But that's where I sit with it, okay? So to wrap up my like pre-discussion about the book, there are a few revelations that came out with this book, which some of these might be spoilers to you. They're not like story spoilers, but you know, it is true that there's going to be I don't know how many books will be in this series, but there is going to be another MM one within this. This is going to be the villain series is what it's going to be called. So there was Kiss the Villain. The next one will be Hunt the Villain. We do know who that couple is. I will reference that at the end of my review of like who that will be. So you can skip if you don't want that spoiler yet of who that's going to be. But there's, I think, the most controversy about what that next couple is going to be, that they feel that she's taking a like cash grab part of it, but we'll get to that. I don't feel that way after reading this book, but again, I'll leave that up to you and I'll leave it up to the community that it affects. That's not my place to say it, right? But we thought this was just going to be a standalone to cover those two characters. So I don't think anyone's upset that this was an MM, this one, because that's what we knew it was going to be. She'd teased that throughout the series, that this couple was happening in the background. And was she maybe fibbing, saying she would never tell their story? Probably. I think she wanted to see how God of Fury went. And I don't think it's a cash grab to then tell this story that she was already hinting at this couple, because she wanted to see how it went, right? Like, she'd never written MM before. And once she put out God of Fury, and it is, in my opinion, probably her most popular book that she's had and had the most success, like, outside of the Renaverse. There's people that just read this book, people who only read MM who read this book, that there's a whole audience she could be appealing to there. It just does clash with some of her regular audience. But the fact that she feels so passionate about these stories that she's kind of going all in on MM right now, I think tells you how much she does love writing it, because there is an equal amount of hate that she's getting as well to praise. And it would, of course, be easier for her to just go back to writing MF and have people shut the fuck up if she wasn't actually passionate about it. Because if you think that it's completely equal, the amount of audience she'll have if she switches to MM as it is when she was writing MF, it's not true. It's harder for authors writing exclusively MM to be able to get, which again, I'm not saying she will exclusively go MM, but that is where she's going right now. The next books on the slate are all MM from her. Okay. So, I just had to get through that. Like I said, there were things I needed to get off my chest about that. And again, you can decide your own feelings on how you feel. I am not like this huge defender of Rena Ken. I like these stories. They're toxic, dark romance. Also, she has now a level of more awareness being with Bloom than she had even before. Even though she was very, very popular in the indie space, she's still like, there's a whole nother level you enter when you're in the public sphere, right? You've seen it happen to some authors. Like, things can spiral out of control very quickly. And authors have to become very insular to protect themselves and just write their stories and leave it to their publicity teams and marketing to like stay out of it, right? They just got to write the stories that they want to tell. So all that to be said, how did I feel about Kiss the Villain, which I've already hinted at? I loved this book. I'll tell you at the front end before I get into a few more details of this, because I know some of you will want the more specifics of if you should read this or not. But a like non-spoiler comment on it is that I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It's a 4.5 on the spice scale. This is, of course, very spicy. This is a toxic romance. This is dark. There is a host of triggers. I'm actually going to tell you the triggers up front with these, which she's not hiding either. They are in the front of the book, like no hiding with triggers or anything. But this is absolutely toxic. It's as toxic as anything else she's ever written. And it is 2 men that are both twisted in different ways. They have their shit going on and they are both a little bit rabid in different ways. Okay. So this is very like intense and in a way that most MF cannot get to this level. And so, again, that's a bit of the irony I find of people saying, like, you're, like, badly portraying a relationship, which, again, I know there's more criticism and scrutiny of MM relationships anyway. So it can, they're saying, like, be careful what you're saying about marginalized communities and all that. But, again, I come back to the fact that she's writing dark romance, and none of her relationships are examples of relationship, okay? None of them. So to then have her say that her MM relationships would have to show great representation where she doesn't for anything else, that would just feel really odd. You know what I mean? So I just come back to, she's writing toxic, unhealthy, twisted, fucked up relationships, no matter what the sexual orientation of said characters are. And so I just find it odd when people try to say, like, you need to represent this gay relationship better. And I'm like, but she doesn't do that with any, like, I don't know. Again, not my community. So I'm trying to be careful how I say that, but I can't look at it any other way in my brain. Okay. Does that mean other people's critiques of it are not valid? True. Like, they can have those, but I'm coming at this from a dark romance lover, and I hate when people try to put normal relationship rules onto a dark romance, no matter what the couple or throuple or why choose situation is, right? I don't like seeing that tried to be forced onto it at all, okay? When a story is dark romance, the author says it's dark romance, the author gives you all the triggers you need for it, and you still choose to read the book, then it's on you how that happens, right? Does that mean they're completely removed from critique if they put the thing of dark? No. I get that. However, that's the dichotomy of reading dark romance, okay? You have to be adult enough to decide that for yourself, because there can be a dark romance that you have all the triggers for it and you know all the things and it still doesn't work for you. And that doesn't mean you're too much of a wimp for the triggers, right? I would never say that to you. But I just want you to keep it in mind when you review it, that you knew those things going in, and you then review the book on the facts of, like, these are what didn't work about this relationship for me within the concepts of dark romance, instead of saying this is what didn't work about the relationship for me for a relationship as a whole, because those aren't the same, right? When we read a dark romance, how are we criticizing it as what the author promised the story would be, not as what we think is a healthy, relationship where we're exploring our sexual boundaries that way. Like, those are not the same. Any dark relationship I've read, we should call the police if anyone treated us that way, right? So Okay, so this book, Gareth. Okay, Gareth is Killian's older brother. He's in law school. We see a lot of Killian in this book, as we should. We learn immediately from the jump of this that Gareth is almost as fucked up as Killian is, but he's not a psychopath the way that Killian was. And so he was able to hide who he is a lot more. And he does carry a burden because he saw what happened with Killian, who again didn't hide who he was when he was young. His parents had him tested. His brother brought like dead animals to his parents that he dissected. And so his father has been very wary of Killian. That is Killian's story in God of Malice. We won't, redux that. But Gareth has always been very aware of it, and he's hidden it better. And this book starts out with him going to, is it the Serpents? Whichever club is like the opposite club of the like heathens, I think, so they are, whatever. And he's going to try and embarrass this guy named Julian. It's Yulian. And he's going to embarrass him sexually. He's not planning to, fuck him or rape him. Sorry, I'm just putting it out there. He's not going there to do it, but he's going there to make it seem like he did. I won't explain that whole situation. But when he gets to the room, he thinks he's drugged this man, thinks he's drugged his drink, and he's going in there to do what he's going to do. There's someone else there who's wearing a mask, partial mask, and is not who he thought he was going to do. And things get turned around on Gareth, okay? And we have a situation like in God of Malice in a certain way, right? This book, if I were to explain it, it's God of Malice and God of Fury, and that's this. But take, both heroes from that and smash them together, okay? That is what we have in this, okay? So it's intense. Because that's the thing. Gareth came to do something wrong and it is a sexual assault what he was going to do, and it gets turned around on him, and he gets face fucked by this guy who's in there, okay? Things get turned around. And it's intense because we start off with that, okay? So this, I said I was going to tell you the triggers off front. So there's one for you that I just said, right? There is sexual assault in here. There is, hand necklaces. There is breeding kink, there's dubious consent, non-consent, praise and degradation, there's spanking, there's of course anal, and there is also, which I had never heard of this kink before, this is a kink, there is a feminization kink, which is a kink that happens in certain relationships, I guess. Did not know about this. If you don't know what that is, I will say it's where you refer to the male anatomy as like female parts. So there are times during this when Gareth is having sex with Caden, and Caden refers to Gareth as like his pussy, and things like that. Did not know about this kink. Not sure how I feel about it, I'll tell you, but Gareth ends up being super into it, and they actually talk about it at points of like which things Gareth likes and doesn't. But that's not happening in the beginning because this is a non-consensual stuff in the beginning. So things go very wrong for Gareth in the beginning of this, okay? Now, again, I'm not going to go through this entire book, but let me tell you the points how we know this. So the thing about this that I didn't like, right? Because there are some things I didn't like, and honestly, ultimately, that's why this is a 5-star read and not a 6-star read, because it could have been a 6-star read, but I'm settling at more like a 5 for me. It's not as good as God of Fury. But I still liked it a lot. I liked it. But anyway, this book is taking place at the same time as everything else. So guess what? He finds out that this guy's his professor. He did not know that, of course, when what's happening. And we discover that Caden is the law professor that he's going to be having to see. And then we see the initiation. Again, okay, I did not care for this. I was buddy reading this with Jess from Honest Fiction because we both had ALCs of it. And I messaged her and I was like, not the initiation, which we see in almost every single book in Legacy of the Gods. So that should tell you, this is a Legacy of the Gods book, okay? She had those 6 books planned out, but this one truly is the 7th book, which I think makes sense for how she came about it too. It has kind of the color scheme is kind of the same thing still. Book 2, I don't think will feel the same as, maybe it will. There are hints that it might, but truly this is a continuation of that series because we see cameos of pretty much every single character in that, one. And he's the closest with, right, Killian and Nico. He's very close with them, and so we see them a lot. And that's another reason why, like, God of Fury and God of Malice are good comparisons to this. But we see through this relationship with Caden and Gareth, like, Gareth is behind the scenes stuff happening the same time as, like, the other guys are falling in love with their people throughout it as well. And Nico and him, as I said, there's a conversation in God of Fury where they discuss liking men now. And Nico's kind of the one who's like, dude, just, like, try stuff out. Like, do this, like, try that, like, things like that. But he discovers this professor. Caden actually sneaks into the initiation. So we just discover that every single person was fucking during that initiation. Everybody was. Because there's another, like, non-consensual scene that happens in the woods between Caden and him there. So yeah, lots of that. But then this becomes, like, a hidden relationship. You know, this is an age gap. He's, I think, 11 years older than him. And, you know, it's forbidden because he's a student. And also, Caden is from, you know, he has a lot of secrets. I don't want to spoil all those things. This isn't out there. But yeah. So this is a forbidden student-teacher relationship or professor-student relationship, though, like, he's 22 and Caden is 33, I think. There are still connections to organized crime in here. There is a secret society that Caden is a part of. So all these things are going on. One of the other big triggers for this is self-harm. There is a lot of self-harm from Gareth in this one. Really want to put that out there. Very much so is. But yeah, this relationship is very toxic, very unhealthy for a good portion of it. And again, like I said, there's a lot of secrets that Caden has. There is kind of a reason why he was targeting Gareth, why he was in that room that Julian was supposed to be in, why he continues to fuck with him, and why he, you know, as he falls in love with him, why it could be very complicated. So all of those things are included in here. But to me, this still had, like, as these two fall in love and they figure out their relationship, and as they have, like, ups and downs, and we see how psychotic Gareth is in a totally different way than Killian is, the issues that he has, the way that Cade actually helps him with some of those. But then there are, like, all those things. So I've said enough. I don't want to spoil things. How did I feel about it as a whole at the end? As I said, I gave this 5 stars. I cried multiple times in this one, though I still found God of Fury to work for me better. This was very close. I felt for both of them so much, and I thought this was interesting and just so toxic. Like, there's no other way to say that. This is an extremely toxic relationship for the first, like, 2 or 3 encounters are non-consensual, and you're going to see that a ton in the reviews, okay? But again, remember this when you see a lot of the reviews that are very much balanced between, like, 2 stars and 5 stars, right? There are people that are not mentoring Rita Kent, or they don't want to read this level of it, or they don't want to see this type of toxic relationship. Some of those people are fans of Rita Kent who just don't like it this way. Some people just never want to read MM. So there's all those different things, and you have to decide if it's right for you or not. But as always, with things like Untouchable and God of Malice, I am not actively recommending this to you, okay? I'm not putting this on a pedestal and saying this is the best of this, you need to go and get this. This is at the edge of what I can read these days, okay? I do not usually enjoy this type of stuff anymore. It's tough for me to read. But Rita Kent does it in this way where I'm just so addicted to it, and I can't look away, and I just want to see how they can have an HEA and if I believe it for them or not. And I believe it for them at the end of this, and it was fascinating how she pulls me around with these two. And of course, there are some very hot, toxic, sexy things. There are things they experiment together. There's some actually, again, really great kind of like mental training and help that Caden gives to Gareth that, again, not healthy. We should have a psychiatrist involved for it. But when you are men like this, you're not going to go see a psychiatrist because they would just lock you up for who you are. But it was a fascinating story for me, and I gobbled it up all in one. And again, who I recommend this to, if you like dark MM, right? If you like CE Re-C, or you like that kind of toxic stuff. If you liked God of Fury, you'll probably like this one. Truly. Again, there are lots of great cameos from Bran and Nico and from Glenn and Killian, and we see like pretty much everyone, which was great. And yeah, I thought this was good. Now, to round it off, because I told you I had a lot to say about this. We do find out by the end of this one who the next couple is, and that is where a lot of the controversy is coming, because the second book is announced, Hunt the Villain, and it already is being tanked on Goodreads because one of the characters involved in this one, he has a girlfriend in the series, and she uses words like he was devoted to his girlfriend, or the girlfriend's devoted to him. And so people think that this is proof that Rena Ken is turning everybody gay so that she can write an MM series for a cash grab. And I won't even pick that fully apart for you about how absolutely stupid that is, because literally gay for you is one of the main tropes in MM romance or bi awakenings or gay awakenings. And so to say like, he had a girlfriend, he can't be gay, you're just deciding he's gay for a book. Let's not. Because let's not. And also let's not to the people who haven't read Kiss the Villain yet. Because that relationship that's coming in Hunt the Villain, which I'm not officially going to say that couple, you'll be able to figure it out. But that relationship that's coming is absolutely explained in this book and built up in this book. And I'm so ready for it. If I could read it right this second, I would read it. So I don't care that this person has a girlfriend and that it's a good relationship. That's fine. It doesn't mean you can't have a gay awakening or a bi awakening. And also, in a series of psychopaths who are good at masking, who's to say that he's not masking in that relationship and pretending to love this girl and be devoted to her? Bran fucking did that too, okay? People can mask in relationships, so I just won't even, like, the people who are saying she's turning people gay, like, I'm sorry, I don't call people this often, but you're hiding some homophobic feelings if it's not okay for a person to realize that they're gay or bi later on in life, okay? And the other character who it will be, it's already kind of established that they're bisexual or will fuck anyone, so whatever. But anyway, leave that up to you. Now, I said this 3 times, but the final thing then is that Beautiful Venom, which again, if you go back to the beginning of my rant of this 30-minute long rant here, Beautiful Venom was written before this book. And it was announced before this book because that is her series with Bloom. She had to turn that book in a long time ago. And, if you read the blurb for Beautiful Venom, it says this is divorced from the Renaverse. You don't need to read the other books. It's completely separate. And before I read Kiss the Villain, I would have believed that of Beautiful Venom, and it will be completely separate. It's going to be a hockey series, but it is a hockey team that exists in this world, and one of the characters introduced in Kiss the Villain is related to a character who will be in Beautiful Venom. But again, I want you to remember, she wrote Beautiful Venom first, so any things you'll see in Beautiful Venom that connect to here or here that connect to Beautiful Venom, she put into this one when she wrote it, because she'd already turned that one into Bloom, to kind of lead you up to Beautiful Venom, right? Which plenty of authors do. They want to push you to the next book. You still will be able to read Beautiful Venom and not be confused about anything in here because, again, it's a hockey team and someone's related to someone who plays hockey. So that's the most that it's connected. But for her to say in the blurb that it's completely disconnected, it's because she wrote that blurb first. You don't have to read 40 books from Rena before you'll be able to read Beautiful Venom. But when you read Kiss the Villain, you'll see her teases at that one. So, okay, I have to move on because I still have 2 more books to mention. Now, I was in the midst of both of these when Kiss the Villain came out, so it turned out I was reading like 3 kind of mafia and dark things at the same, though they were much lighter than this one was. So, another one I read that I really want to talk about, but I won't talk about for too long because this is going to be an hour and a half long and I have to edit it and get it uploaded before noon today, so I can't talk forever. But I read a new to me author that I found on not Goodreads, on NetGalley, and I haven't done this in a really long time. But now and then, there are authors who are not with big publishers that can put their books on NetGalley. And I have found a few new to me authors by doing that, right? When I got back into Claire Kent, funny enough, she puts her books on NetGalley. So that is how I discovered she was continuing the Kindle series is because she put it on NetGalley, and I read Embers, was it Embers or Princess? Princess on through NetGalley, which is just nuts. So I saw this mafia one pop up, and that it was coming out in a few weeks, and it is called Ruthless Bonds, and the author is Danny Antoinette. So never heard of her, but the blurb looked good, and I was like, let me grab this one. You know, I had how many other books to read this month, but I wanted to try a new to me author, and I'm so glad I did, because I gave this book 4 stars. It's not perfect, which is just fine, but I will continue to read this author. This is the start of a new series, Bratva Mafia. You know, I also did grab it because of the cover, right? This model, you know, it's Ivan. It's the cover of so many mafia romances. And this one is a like second chance, kind of. Also a forced marriage. Also a protection deal. And I really enjoyed this, and it gave me all the Neva Altai vibes. And yes, I'm changing how I say her name, because apparently it's Neva Altai, not Altaj. Did not know this, but if you listen to the audiobook, Crystal said that's how they pronounce it, and now I'm going to try to say her name correctly, even though I've said it wrong for how many years, and I don't expect you to follow me, but I'm going to say that. But I got Neva Altai vibes about this one, and it makes me very excited for what else this author has coming next, because of how this was done. So we have our character Krios and Alora, and Alora is kind of a thief. Well, at least she is a thief in the situations we see her in, but she's just trying to get by with her and her siblings. She has older brother. She has a brother who died. They're all kind of like orphans on their own. She has a younger sister who is mute, so she does use devices to communicate. I don't believe she uses ASL because she never like learned it, but she uses devices to communicate, which is a cool aspect to see. But in the beginning of this book, she's being held captive, and the boss is going to come talk to her. So she got off the wrong start with the Bratva, and she's being held captive, literally like being hung by her wrists in a basement, and she's waiting for the boss to show up and probably kill her. We don't immediately know why she got caught by them, but we know she did. And when the boss comes down and confronts her, she knows him. And she says, I think I need to call in that favor. And she says that to him. And that's where the prologue, like the prologue ends. And then we go back in time. It says like 8 days, and we learn like how she got to that situation. And it had to do with her sibling owing some money, and she tries to help out. But then once we get back to the situation where she's hanging from her wrist, we discover that they had actually got stuck together for a night once. She was at that point, I think, thieving something else. This was 6 years ago, but she ended up saving his life, and they actually have sex that night together. And they go their separate ways, but he left her with his card. And at that point he wasn't the pecan, but it's 6 years later, things have happened. He's now the pecan, and she has run amok of his mafia. And when he hears about this certain girl who he needs to go punish, he's like, oh my gosh, this is the girl. And he has never stopped thinking about her. He's kept an eye on her now and then, but she never reached out with his card. So he didn't want to involve her in his life. He, has enough stuff going on, but now she's fallen into his lap, and he's like, I'm not going to let her go this time. So because he, should very rightly, if this was anyone else, punish them very severely, he instead makes a deal with her that she will now owe him, and she'll do for him whatever he needs. And in exchange, he'll let her and her sister live. And of course, he was never going to do anything to her. But now he has an excuse to be watching her all the time. And when someone then comes after them for another reason, he's like, okay, you're not safe on your own anymore. I'm moving you into my mansion. And in fact, I'm going to marry you because I need a wife anyway, and I'm not going to marry anybody else. So now she's being forced into marriage with him. So this is, like I said, there were lots of Neva Altai vibes. He's obsessed with her. He's very protective of her. He's buying her all these things. He's looking out for her. And she definitely gives him a lot of pushback on it, but it was really it was really like sweet and hot and all those fun things. So yeah, I enjoyed this quite a bit. The reason why I docked a little bit on it is there are like too many villains going on and there's too many characters introduced into this. This is about 330 pages and I think it would have been better if it was tighter. Like I think she resists him for longer than I need her to and just things like that. So I think that if she'd leaned, again, I'm not forcing an author to do this, but if she'd been even more kind of like a Neva Altai and been like briefer, it could have been even stronger. But still, if this book comes out soon, it comes out on the 24th, I think. So Tuesday maybe. I think you should go read it. This author has one other series that I may try to read, but otherwise this is the start of a new series. And the next one is going to be about the sister who's mute and one of the guards who like works for Krios. So very intrigued for this. So there are, of course, trigger warnings for, there is some abuse to an animal. The animal's okay, but it's sad. There's kidnapping, drugging, sexual assault, and torture that happens in this one. Okay, and then the last book, I'll get to quickly here, was dual narrated by Aaron Shetlock and Stella Hunter. They're a great pairing. I love them. And this was Reckless Obsession by Deborah Garland. So I actually listened to Deborah Garland earlier in the month, right, which is part of the Astoria Royals. This is a spin-off series from the Astoria Royals, but it is still about one of the brothers. And this one, he's a lawyer for the family, and he's a defense lawyer. And our heroine, who is a 30-year-old virgin, her name is Jillian. Her and her brother actually are both prosecutors. And she gets assigned to actually work with him because there's some dirt that her brother has on Owen's family. And he says, I won't use it if you help us out with this case against a different mafia. So this is the Irish mafia. And he says, yeah, if you help me out with this, we won't go after your brother. So they end up working together. Owen becomes obsessed with her. They actually fuck each other before things get like too serious with work. Like she doesn't know she's going to be working with him. They actually are against each other in court and they get hot and they have sex. She's actually a virgin, right? And so now he's like deflowered her and he's super into her and he begins stalking her. And then when he gets assigned to work with her, he really is stalking her. Now she knows she shouldn't be sleeping with an Irish mafia guy. And so she actually joins a dating app and he finds out she joins a dating app and he's like, no, I can't have her meeting someone else. So he creates a profile and they start talking that way. So this is one of those where like she's sleeping with this guy she met on the app because she can't sleep with the guy that she's working with, but it's the same guy. So yeah, I put this as dark romance in my subgenre, but this is an erotic romance, okay? The sex is the main point for most of the book. There's a lot of sex. There's a lot of kinks in this one. This one will show up in some specific rec videos for sure because there is anal, there's breath play, there's CNC role play, there is he's too big, there's toys, there's somnophilia, which she enjoys. There's even a little bit of like spit play going on. So there's like a lot of kinks. This is like all sex forward. So this was a 4.5 on the spice scale, but I will be giving it a 3.5 for story because it was lacking in that for me. This was 430 pages and a good 200 of it are sex, and I'm not even exaggerating. I was like, what are we doing here? Okay. So I don't love that as much because the last book I read from Deborah Garland earlier this month is my favorite I've read from her. And that one was very well balanced and a beautiful romance. And this one was just, she's a horny virgin. And now that he's popped her cherry, she just wants to fuck in every way possible. And though I don't like hate that, it just felt very cheap compared to what I had just read, which was very emotional, like good one. So not my favorite way to end out the week. But we have got to go because damn, this is going to take me forever to pick apart, but I hope you liked it. I know you guys love my longer ones, so hopefully at least this will do me well for how long you watch it. We'll see how that goes. But thank you so much. Please make sure you like this and comment. I don't have time to go into it. Maybe I'll talk about it in a chatty video. Let me know if you have some topics for a chatty video, because I think we're due one. There's been a lot going on in the book community, and I do want to talk about the monetization stuff going on with YouTube, because YouTube's going to be changing monetization, and I don't fully know how it's going to affect my channel, but I do know that it could be pretty serious. So if you want to support me at all, becoming a channel member, even for a few dollars a month, or joining my Patreon at the lowest level, really could help, because even these videos where I talk and talk and talk for a long time, they're going to be cutting my monetization for them, and that could really hurt me as a small business. So again, I don't normally bring that in and like break the illusion of it, but I am getting nervous in it because this is my full-time job, and they're planning to change that. So not change that as my full-time job, but change my income flow. So if at all you'd like to support what I do here, if you enjoy these reviews, please check that out. So thank you so much for watching, my friends. I adore you with my whole heart and soul. Thank you for making this possible, and I'll see you next time. Bye.